Hello, students and alumni alike. We are back with Fixations, the show where we talk about their students and their latest obsession. Today we have Shyheem McDuffie. He's a junior at Fayetteville State with a major in political science and a minor in communication. This man is the president of the Political Science Club, and because I don't want to mess this up again, he's a member of the National Association for Black Journalists. He is loud, proud, and never afraid to speak his mind. And speaking of that mind, how are we doing today, Shyheem McDuffie?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing super now that we got that introduction right.
Great.
I've seen you around this campus for about 3 years now, and you have been very active as much as you can be. You do a lot of stuff for our friends, to be specific, and I would like to know, what is your fixation?
So my fixation is Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's one of the greatest shows of all times that could ever been created.
The greatest cartoons of all time. And I see we have a little friend with us today.
Yes, I do. As you see right here, I have Little Toph, one of the main characters in this series.
Would you describe her as shy?
No, absolutely not.
And we will get into that.
Yes.
So, when did your fixation start?
So, a little background. The show started in 2005, so I was a child at the time. I was a baby, so like 1 year older than me, in 2005. And so my fixation started back in 2011, 2012, in that time period, where in my life I felt this show really resonated with me, especially with the characters and the themes that were going on, and being that I'm an only child, I felt like these characters were my family, were my friends, and things like that. So
the show was always so very welcoming. Every time I took just a little peek at it.
Every time, yes.
Just a little peek, maybe like once, 2, or 100 times. And we are going to get into that real quick. And speaking of Toph, is that your favorite character?
Yes, actually. I would say she is my favorite character.
Like of all time?
Of all time, yeah. I would say all time. I'd say it's her, then there's Aang, Sokka, then Katara.
Wait, what about Zuko?
Honorable mentions, to say the least. They are honorable mentions.
If I'm going to be personally honest, my favorite character personally is Sokka. I genuinely think that he is the most underappreciated member of the squad in both the show and in the community. He does everything they do, but just like in just a very unique way. Like he thinks smarter, not harder.
Yes.
And it's funny because they always portray him as a hardhead, right? And yeah, but when it comes to actually locking in, he does it like no other.
Absolutely. But when it comes to combat, he is always on it. He's on his P's and Q's. And I think it just comes with growing up in an environment where things happening, with the Fire Nation coming in and invading, and growing up with being the only boy, I would say, in the tribe. You just have to grow up quicker, in a sense, and advance. And being that he always wanted to make his father proud, I think that's also an element in there that really helps him, and why I like him as well. I wouldn't say he's my favorite character, like my top 10 or top 5 favorite character.
He's in there.
Because he's definitely in there. Because Sokka really for me as a person of color, I would say, I really loved how he was on his A game. He was always finding ways to get through the times of triumph or trials and tribulations. It's the same thing for his sister, who I feel I empathize with her. I feel empathy for her, considering that she has to grow up so quick, so fast.
So fast.
She had to become the mother to Sokka, and all because, the Fire Nation took over, and
then you have to wake up the next day, and all of a sudden you have to train the Avatar.
Yes, and now you have to train the Avatar and basically go on this adventure, traveling new lands, traveling and meeting new people. I think really this show as a whole just taught me so many things about the power of friendship and the power of community.
You got a favorite episode?
My my favorite episode, I would say, is the love. It's called The Cave of Lovers. The Cave of Lovers. I really love that one. So Aang and Katara and Sokka are traveling, and they meet some travelers who are on their way to Amashu as well. And so they was like, come along with us, and you know, we get through this together. And so when that was happening, they traveled into the cave, which is called Secret Tunnels. And we see how quirky Sokka is in this episode, as well as, well, not Sokka, but more so the travelers, and how they're just so carefree. I really love this episode because of how flowy they were, how entertaining that the journey was, even though Sokka, Katara, and Aang are going on a serious journey right now. And we saw that Sokka was very frustrated in a sense, frustrated with this. And overall, I really love how it was carried through. You see, they talk about the elements of love and how love actually got them through the tunnels, because things were happening in the cave where it was a trap pretty much. So people that were going inside of the cave, they would get lost because they didn't understand how to get through it. And then you find out the real message was about love. And that's when we see Katara and Aang kind of kiss, and it lit up the walls, and then they traveled through and they made it through. And the episode ends with them basically going to Amashu and seeing that the Fire Nation have taken over.
Speaking of the Fire Nation taking over, would they have taken over if any of the nations were prepared before their attack?
Oh, absolutely not. I do not, with every fiber of my being, I do not think so. Especially with the Air Nation. I feel, to me, and I understand, like, from every aspect, everybody was, you know, affected tremendously, but I think the Air Nation got it the worst, considering that they, were already distant from everyone, and they really wanted to keep it that way. But unfortunately, with that, they ended up not knowing that the Fire Nation were already planning to invade. And because they were sleeping, they took advantage, and they got the worst effects.
So if, theoretically speaking, if the Fire Nation would not have won, like, period, if all three nations were prepared, with that being said, do we think actually, let me rephrase that. Do we agree that fire bending is the worst bending?
I would say fire bending is the worst bending. Yes. Because they are, to me, I don't want to call them weak. They are very powerful when they're together.
However, they get flung like ants.
Yes, I agree with that.
Over and 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 over. I haven't counted a single episode, but they were not, like, completely outclassed. Like, maybe even a single bender just in general.
Yes, like there was many episodes where we see, like, basic level earthbenders taking advantage of them. Like the one episode I think is another favorite when we see them capturing the earthbenders. Katara took lead and was seeing how this was going on, and she didn't appreciate this at all, and she knew that the Earth Kingdom was very strong. The Earth Nation are very powerful people, and so she felt like they needed to fight back against the Fire Nation.
Every child in my Water Tribe village was rocked to sleep with stories of the brave Earth Kingdom and the courageous earthbenders who guard its borders. Some of you may think that the Fire Nation has made you powerless. Yes, they have taken away your ability to bend, but they can't take away your courage. And it is your courage they should truly fear, because it runs deeper than any mine you've been forced to dig, any ocean that keeps you far from home. It is the strength of your hearts that make you who you are. Hearts that will remain unbroken when all rock and stone has eroded away. The time to fight back is now. I can tell you the Avatar has returned. So remember your courage, Earthbenders. Let us fight for our freedom!
Show no mercy! For the Earth Kingdom, attack!
Are we watching the Netflix series?
For me, I have, but I kind of feel that it's not my favorite, to say the least, because there's a lot of elements in the show that don't really reflect how the original show was portrayed.
How so?
In the sense of the characters, their personalities do not reflect. I don't see Katara. I don't see Aang's being. I just see him focusing mainly on objective. My job. But in the original show, we saw Aang having to use both things. He was both things. Yes, he's the Avatar. Yes, he's 12. He had to, the whole journey was to basically have a balance in both responsibility and being a child.
That's what the whole show was about.
That was
balance.
the entire show. So when you take that element out, I feel like you're leaving these characters without a portion of themselves. It makes them hollow. I don't like the narrative of taking Sokka's misogyny out of his character and replace it with nothing.
Now, we know why they did that. Because, like, obviously, it's not gonna work now and today. Misogyny is just not okay, period. But when Sokka was doing misogyny in the show, he was learning how to take away those ideals. He was realizing that it's not the way you're supposed to view the world.
Absolutely, yes.
It was like, that's where his development came in. But if he never had it, period, I don't know, it just makes him, it's a lot harder for him to have anything to go off of.
Yes, and I completely agree with that. I also think that one thing that I really loved about the show was the fact that they had that in there, understanding, like knowing that we also know that these things, these elements are bad. They weren't trying to portray it as if it was good. We knew it was bad, which is why we were able to, care for Sokka so much, because we want him to do better. We're like, no, these are not a good thing.
Like, I never looked at the show where he said, yeah, girls can't fight. And I go, yeah, I agree.
Right.
No, it's just...
We just knew these things were bad. We agreed that it were bad. So taking that out, I just feel like, and then replacing it with nothing, it's like, what's the point?
Was there any character development for Azula?
For what I have seen so far is that they have added the element earlier on of learning that Azula is doing the things that she's doing in the for her father. She's doing it to please her father, and that, to me, is like a I don't know.
It's
just not the same. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, in the cartoon, Azula was a terrorist.
Yes.
Last I checked.
Yes. And then she still is, but it's just, you're giving her a motive to do so. It's kind of, I don't know how to feel about it.
I don't know if she had a motive when she was smiling while her brother's face was getting burned off.
Right.
And it looked like a motive from that perspective, personally.
I will be your teacher. I looked away.
They have announced that the next Avatar show is coming out in 2025, which is very nerve-wracking that we are around the corner.
Yeah.
But with that being said, with how Korra went, regardless of anybody's like opinion on that, for my last question, how would you want the next Avatar show to go?
So, I think one of the coolest things I would want to see is how the Avatar is going to basically put an end to the Avatar state as a whole. And I understand that that is a very controversial thought or idea. And what I mean by this is how the Avatar will figure out what it is, what it means to be the Avatar, and understand that each time the Avatar is reincarnated, that Avatar spends its entire life focusing on the last Avatar's mistakes. I would want to know how the Avatar is going to do that, sever himself from the Avatar. Rather, he will do that or not. I would definitely love for that aspect to come in where he's conflicted with it. I also want to know about how futuristic the new show is going to be. Like, what time period will it take in? Because we know the last one, Korra, was sort of kind of like steampunkish, right?
It was like just a couple. I think it was like right there at the steampunk era, maybe about a decade or two before the steampunk, directly before the steampunk era.
Right, it was sort of.
If not right there.
Yeah, I would also say it was like very slightly taking inspiration from like the early 40s.
It was getting
right?
modern.
It was getting modern.
Pretty close to modern history.
So I would want to know what's next? Like, what's the next advancement? Because we got cars now, but how far can we take that?
We also have metal bending.
We have
now,
metal bending.
So I can't imagine, no matter how many times I try, I cannot imagine a gun in Avatar. Or to be more specific, I can't imagine a gun being useful in Avatar.
Agreed.
Like, I'm pretty sure this can go for every nation, just anyone. It's just no diff. There is nothing anyone can do about a gun.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on, like, you talking about the advancements of bending, I want to know what other bending will they come up with, because they will have to put that into it, because we already know about the 4 elements. Okay, we know there's metal bending, and we also know that there's the lava bending, and for air, there's flight. What more advancement can we get?
I think it would be, okay, first off, I cannot think of a single other thing for water, and even if I could, water doesn't need any other sub-element. It does not need any other sub-ability. Water is okay. Water will be good. Personally, for what I would like to see earthbending to branch out in metals, it does metal period. What happens, can it manipulate gold? Can it eliminate aluminum? I would like to see how that would look. That would be very interesting. Also, in terms of airbending, I want to see more so weather manipulation. Like, way for into that. Like, can it make storms? Like, for all we know, yeah, the Avatar can do that, but that's a combination of things. It's the Avatar.
Right.
But how much further can they take airbending?
I would love to see that, especially knowing that the Air Nation is coming back. I would love to see more of them, working together and doing more things. So, a great aspect.
Do you have any closing statements that you would like to give to Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I want to say thank you to Michael Dante for creating this show. Y'all have brought so much into my life. Y'all have brought so much inspiration, so much joy and happiness. I'm just gonna grab this. You created this character, the best character known to man, and I want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
And thank you me for having you, Shyheem McDuffie.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you have a great day, Faithful State University. And that ends our week's Fixation. Please support the official release of any source material you've seen used in this episode, and all information and music used will be located on your screen for you right now. And hey, if you want to be in the show, I will leave my information down on the screen for you as well, or you can just come talk to me anytime you wish on Faithful State University. Thank you for watching, and tune in for next week's Fixation.